Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hunter. You may know me from my other YouTube channel, Hobby Goblin Studios, where I make cool nerd things for cool nerd games, such as D&D and Warhammer. Today, though, we're here to talk about my favorite hero in the game of Flesh and Blood, Chane, bound by shadow. But more specifically, we're going to be talking about Eclipse, his specialization. Eclipse is a wonderful tool for beating up fatigue heroes and just making sure we have that late game inevitability. But a lot of people aren't quite sure how to play it, why we play it, or if it can even be played with Seeds of Agony being banned now. So, if you're a new player wondering why the heck this is in every Chane list, or a player that played back when Seeds was legal and is just now coming back to the deck, we're going to go ahead and break down Eclipse for you today. So first of all, we're going to start by breaking out my deck, bringing you guys down to the table, and showing you some of the numbers on how we can make sure we get Eclipse to go off every game that we play it. Then after that, we're going to take a look at one of my games that was on stream on Man Sans channel. And then I'm going to go ahead and take some questions from the Discord. So let's hop on down to the table and show you guys what's going on there. So before we get started, I kind of want to talk about what exactly is Eclipse and why do we play it. So let's go ahead and throw Eclipse down right there for us. Eclipse is a legendary Chane specialization. This means we can only have one in our deck and only if our hero is Chane. Eclipse reads, play Eclipse only if you have played 6 or more cards with Blood Debt this turn. If you have, you may play Eclipse from your banish zone. Create an Ursur the Soul Reaper token. This is a blue card that costs 0. Because it is an instant, we don't need an action point for it. It also does not block, so that is something to consider. Ursur the Soul Reaper is an ally token. For those of you that are maybe not familiar with what allies are, they're sort of like creatures in Magic the Gathering. If that doesn't help you out, basically it is a token that stays on the battlefield. We can see here he has a number of hit points, and he does attack for 6. He says once per turn action, 0 cost, attack. While Ursur is attacking a hero with 1 or more cards in their soul, the attack has go again. So keep that in mind when you're playing heroes like Prism or Bolton. However, if the Prism player only has 1 card in their soul, he may not have go again because they can respond by banishing that card from their soul. An ally can be attacked by your opponent, but you cannot defend for them. The ally is destroyed when they've been dealt damage equal to their health stat. However, at the end of each turn, all damage is removed. So they have to deal 6 to him in 1 turn to get rid of him. You'll notice Ursur has the shadow keyword. So that means that you can give his attack go again with Chane's ability. So the most important part about playing Eclipse in any matchup is knowing exactly when your pitch stack is going to be coming back around. And knowing what cards are going to be in your hand and what cards are going to be going to banish. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you exactly how we figure this out. And I'm going to encourage you guys to pull out your decks and do exactly what I'm about to do. Because people can go over the math with you or explain the theory behind it, but it's never going to click until you actually grab your cards and look at it for yourself. So this is how I practice it. This is what made it click in my head, and I hope that it works for you guys. So first of all, we're going to go ahead and assume you're running 60 cards. The first principle of this is that we want to draw 4 cards every single turn and make a shackle every single turn. I'll go ahead and I'll show you later on how you can adjust these numbers if you don't draw 4 cards, or how you can adjust it if you're running more than 60 cards. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just assume we're running 60, drawing 4 every turn, and making a shackle every turn. Okay? So at the start of every game, we draw 4 cards. Now, we're going to go ahead, and I'm not going to go and play out every single hand. I'm just going to assume that I'm going to pitch some number of cards. And then I'm going to play or arsenal every card that is left over. So I'm going to go ahead and make a pile over here for cards that have been played or used or pitched later. The first pitch is the only thing I care about here. So now I'm going to put these upside down like this on the bottom of my deck so I know where my pitch stack starts. Then, at the end of the first turn, we draw 4 cards. Just like so. At the top of our second turn, we're going to go ahead and banish 1 card. Then, we're going to assume that we pitch or play every card in our hand. We're going to draw a new hand. And then we're going to banish 2 cards. And we're going to repeat this process until we get back to our pitch stack. So now we banish 3. And banish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now you'll see that when I draw up at the end of this turn, I'm going to get the first 4 cards that I pitched. And everything after this will then be 8 cards banished, 4 cards drawn. And depending on how many cards you pitched, that will change how many more turns you have left. So we'll end this and we'll draw our cards. Obviously we're going to have more deck because we've been pitching cards. I just have not been simulating that. So now we can see that we will banish 7, and at the end of that turn, draw our hand. So with that, we can now plan what cards are going to be in our hand, what cards we're going to banish. You'll notice that for this example, I put 3 blues on the bottom, because on the turn that we play Eclipse, we're going to need a lot of resources. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys kind of how running a different number of cards affects this, or maybe not drawing 4 cards every turn. So again, let's take just 4 cards. We'll assume those are the first 4 cards that we pitched. Okay? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? This is the 7 cards that we're going to banish before we draw these. Now let's say there was a turn where we only drew 3 cards. So there's going to be 1 additional card in the deck. So then, when we banish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, suddenly we have 1 unknown card remaining in our deck. And our hand will be this. And we'll know that this goes to banish. So what you want to do if you're a new player to Eclipse is make sure you pitch a few extra blue cards so that, let's say, we draw 1 too many cards throughout the course of the game. So we've got 4, 7. That's normally what we would banish. But let's say we had an Art of War turn and we drew 1 too many cards. So now we've only got 6 unknown cards, and we banish 6, and then banish number 7 is what we pitched. And then we will draw whatever the 5th card we pitched is. So it's good to make sure that this 5th card I pitched is also a blue. Ideally, it would be a blue Blood Debt card, so a Shadow Verser or a Mutated Mass, or if you're running blue Seeping Shadow, it could be that. Obviously, Invert Existence is a good one. Whatever it is that you're doing there, just make sure that when we get to this turn, we're going to have 4 cards in our hand that are blue. So this math works out exactly the same way if you're running 72 cards. Not saying that you should, but if that's something you choose to do in a fatigue matchup, you're going to be in the exact same spot, except 1 turn behind. So your pitch stack will come back to you the turn that you banish 8 instead of the turn that you banish 7. Now that we know how many turns we're going to have before second cycle comes around, we can make sure that we're banishing Eclipse on the turn that we have our all blue hand. I'm going to probably touch on this a little bit later when we get into the Discord questions. Speaking of the Discord questions, let's hop into those really quick. The first one that I want to talk about comes from, I believe it's pronounced Zainid, and they ask, if I can Eclipse early, should I take the opportunity? how low do I generally need to get my opponent in order for Eclipse to finish the game? So I think to best answer this question, we should go ahead and take a look at a turn where I did play Eclipse early into my Starvo opponent. This game was actually caught on stream by Mansant. Shout out to him. If you don't know him, he's a great content creator, makes exclusively Levia content, but it's super good. So let's go ahead and hop into that game. We're going to start just the turn that I play my Eclipse, and I'm going to kind of break that down for you. Like I said, I am going to be playing Eclipse on Shackle 6, which is 2 turns earlier than my pitch stat comes around. So we'll go ahead and we'll break that down for you guys. Okay guys, so we're starting off here. You'll notice top of my turn, I lose my Husk. Didn't even get to use it. That's one of the reasons we don't want to play it into Fatigue. However, into Starvo, we can't take that gamble. If they're not fatiguing us, then it hurts to not have the Husk. So again, you see I've got 6 Shackles, just banished 6 cards there. Now, I want to say that at the top of this turn, I'm definitely not thinking about, I'm not committing to playing Eclipse. But I'm looking at the life totals. We've got 21 to my 11. So I know that it is a possibility if we can tear his hand apart and sneak in enough damage. But I do decide we're gonna play a bunch out from Banish here. That's gonna make him think we're going for the Eclipse. So we'll just see how he responds to that and then make the final decision from there. It's also going to be important for me to get some of this blood debt out of my banished zone so that I don't just die to blood debt. That's never fun. So we start off with this Art of War. He commits in the shield, and I'm immediately kind of punished for the way I sequence that Art of War. Because I'm going to have to break the Chane an extra time here, and he's going to be able to block again with the shield. It doesn't end up mattering, but this is something that you're going to want to look out for. I'm going to mention this again a little bit later on and explain kind of how we can go about devaluing the shield. But so you'll notice right here, Shadow of Ursa, excellent card for your Eclipse turn. It allows you to get a blood debt card out without having to use any resources, you know, your Shackle, your Boots, a card with Go Again. Same kind of thing for Invert Existence and Howl from Beyond. They are kind of just free blood debt cards towards Eclipse in that way. So there I go, breaking the Chane. Like I said, he's probably going to get another block out of the shield. I don't remember exactly here. And there's that Howl from Beyond, adding to my blood debt. Still here, not quite committed. Opponent still has, I believe, 2 cards in hand here. And that means if he keeps those 2 cards, he's going to be able to kill Ursa. And we definitely don't want that. And there he goes again, getting that extra value out of shield, paying for it. Okay, that's his second card out of hand, and that is third. So now he's got 1 card in hand. It's at this point that I'm like, okay, we can definitely go off with Eclipse here. There is no possible way for him to kill Ursa next turn. If he takes the extra damage from Ursa to keep a card, then we definitely have the damage to kill him before he kills Ursa. And if he blocks with that card, there's no way he's killing Ursa. And by the time my pitch stat comes around, he will be dead. So we're just going to keep going wide, seeing how much chip damage we can get in, and pad our life total by not taking quite so much blood debt here. He ends up taking the damage here, so I'm thinking he really wants to keep that card. He really wants to have an opportunity to kill Ursa. So we snake some more damage in with the Invert Existence there. Get him down to, is that 17? Smack him with Ursa. He blocks 4, goes down to 15. Now we've stripped his entire hand, and I'm confident that I can kill him if I get one more turn here, which I will. So go back to him. He's just going to tick up his Tunic. We go 15, 17. There's the Tunic tick. coming back to me, and we're going to banish 7. This is still not the turn where my pitch stack comes back. If I play one more turn after this, the cards I draw at the end of this turn will be my pitch stack, but I don't think we actually end up getting there. So right here, guys, this is where I'm going to do something that's going to prevent him from getting value out of shield. I play the Seeping Shadow, so my next attack action card can get go again. Then I make the Soul Shackle, so my next shadow action gets go again. We swing with Ursa, that eats the Shackle, but the Seeping Shadows is still there, so I can play another attack without breaking the chain. This is going to de-incentivize him to use the shield, because he's going to get less value out of it. So he blocks from hand here, going down to 2 cards. Then we get the Ghostly Visit, that gets the go again from our Seeping Shadows. Opponent asking me how many cards are in deck at this point. So I know now that his game plan is going to be try to mitigate damage. We strip the rest of his hand there, and he tells me, go nuts. So now I've got to do 15 damage. That's all I've got to be able to do here. So now we just kind of go nuts, just like he asked. Activate Creepers here to play Howl. This is just another way to not break the chain because we get our extra action point. Not necessary here since he doesn't have any cards. He can't pay for shield, but it's just something to get in the habit of. You'll see that throughout this entire turn, I do not break the combat chain once. And then right here, we're going to get him with our Invert Existence right here. And as always, give him a nice little fist bump, the GGs. And there we go. So, as you guys can see, playing Eclipse early is definitely kind of a situational thing. If you see it early, great. That means that you don't have to worry about having that in your pitch stack. It's just there, it's ready, and if you get an opportunity to take it early, it doesn't always mean that you should. Some things you want to look for are, what is your opponent's life total? What is their game plan? For example, if that particular game had been against an Oldhim, I probably would not have played Eclipse when I did, because Oldhim can really mess with our hand, and Oldhim just mitigates damage a lot better. So dealing that extra bit of damage might not have been possible there. But into Starvo, my opponent I knew he lost his whole hand. I did the math, and it was for 2 turns minimum, my opponent cannot kill Ursa, and if he wants to kill Ursa, that means that he's going to have to keep cards in his hand, which means he's taking extra damage. So when I played Ursa, opponent was at 17 or 15, and for me, I know that my Eclipse turn, or that my following turn after Eclipse, can definitely push through 20 to 30 damage there because of how much access to Blood Debt I have. I still had my Creepers online, I still had my Shackle, so I was very confident in that situation. As far as how low do you generally want to get your opponent, that kind of comes down to specifically your build of the deck. How explosive is your Eclipse turn, right? For me, typically it's somewhere between 25 to 35 damage on the Eclipse turn. So then you have to take into consideration how well does your opponent defend. Generally, that's about 12 to 13. If you're playing into a Guardian with a shield, that can up that. So you take their life total and their defense, and you kind of determine where are they going to end up after that. So if my opponent is at a 15, and they can block for, let's say, 15. If I'm going to do 25 damage on my Eclipse turn, so they're going to block 15 of that, they're going to take 10, go down to 5. Now, any turn I have is going to be presenting lethal to them, so then they cannot put any pressure on me at this point. That is a great time to do it. If opponent is at 25, however, and they can block 15, they're going to take 10, go to 15. Maybe they'll choose to take more so that they can kill Ursa, and then just wait us out, wait till we run out of gas. That's not something we want to have happen there. Next up on the list, we have Bell Toller. How do you use Eclipse most effectively against fatigue decks? Old Bravo, for instance, can kill Ursa with 2 cards and Hammer. So again, that kind of comes back to what is their life total, right? We need to push the Eclipse late enough into the game that Bravo cannot keep 2 cards to kill Ursa. Next up, we have Silhouette. How does the play pattern change, if at all, when you get an early Eclipse banish versus drawing it early. So this is something I kind of didn't cover. We're definitely trying to make sure we're banishing Eclipse late. So if we draw it in the early game, that's a great card to pitch. Set it up in your pitch stack as a banish, not as a draw. However, if you banish it early, like I did in that game, it changes a few minute things, gives you a couple extra lines. Like, for example, in that game that we just watched, it allowed me to play Eclipse 2 turns early. It also means that you can pitch an extra Blood Debt card into your stack, which is always great. But generally, you're still playing the same game when you banish Eclipse versus drawing it early. It's actually kind of helpful to banish it early in that you can leave it there and you're not taking a bunch of Blood Debt. It also means that you have more Blood Debt left in your deck, so you can set that turn up. Something that a lot of new players might struggle with is playing out all of their Blood Debt as it comes. And then when your Eclipse turn comes around, you don't have enough Blood Debt cards to satisfy the condition. Speaking of that, I did get a question, not from the Discord, but from my brother, who was asking me, we play a lot of games together. He plays Prism, so I'm always playing the Eclipse game, and he's often seeing me leave Blood Debt cards in Banish, taking damage from them for multiple turns. And he asked me, is it okay to leave Blood Debt cards in Banish? And for how long, and how do you figure out which ones to leave in? So yes, it is totally okay to leave cards in the Banish zone for you to play later. In fact, most people will say if you have the option to choose between Rosetta and a 4 damage Blood Debt attack to end a turn, choose Rosetta, because now you're going to have a setup for next turn. Our banishes are at random here, so especially in the early game, it's nice to leave access to extra cards so that when you do whiff, you still have something to do and have a nice explosive turn. As it relates to Eclipse, however, usually around turn 6, I'll start leaving things in Banish that help towards Eclipse. So that's things like Shadow Averser, because it has built-in Go Again, Howl from Beyond, because it has built-in Go Again, Seeping Shadows, because it has Go Again and gives something Go Again, and Invert Existence, because it's an instant. So those kinds of cards are really great to leave in Banish and wait for your Eclipse turn. Obviously, you kind of want to mitigate damage, because if you're playing into a Fatigue deck, that is usually a Guardian, which means they can come back with huge hits. So you don't want to put yourself in a position to just lose to them keeping cards. But try to keep some of your Shadow Aversirs, your Invert Existences, those kinds of things in Banish. If you banish them around Shackle 6, Shackle 7, maybe Shackle 5, depending on where your life totals are at in that game. Next question we have. Ace, who are the Fatigue matchups? That is a wonderful question, actually. So there's the obvious ones, the Guardians, Starvo, Bravo, and Oldhim. Prism can play a pretty nasty Fatigue game because they have access to Phantasmal Footsteps, which do almost as much work as the shield, honestly. Beyond that, occasionally if you come across a Dash, they'll be trying to Fatigue you. Katsu, if they're on a defensive package, can try to Fatigue you. But, Brutes, so Leviah and Rhinar, if they try to aggro you, you win that race. It's the easiest matchup of your life. So a lot of them have kind of committed to having some sort of a Fatigue backup plan. And since the aggro matchup is so free, go ahead, throw in your Eclipse and your Seeping Shadows. Into Leviah, always play your Invert Existences. And so if they are trying to Fatigue you, you have the Eclipse game plan to take that on. If they are trying to race you, super free. But yes, Mansant did get me at a Pro Quest. I thought, great, free matchup. I don't even need to worry about this one. Although I did respect him because he's a great player. I actually don't know that I've beaten him yet in a tournament setting. But we went into that matchup, and I didn't bring Eclipse. I put in all of my Invert Existence, and it turns out he tells me turn 2, I sided out every single Blood Debt card in my deck, I'm going for the fatigue game plan. And because of the way I sided, I just couldn't quite get there. So, yes, let's recap that. Guardians, always you want to have your Eclipse package in there. Brutes, may as well throw it in just in case. Prism, throw it in. And then maybe Dash, maybe Katsu. The last question we have from the Discord comes from Wark Wark. What is the most common play to satisfy Eclipse? I know it's 6 Blood Debt cards, but how do you get enough Go Again and pitch? So, again, that just comes down to figuring out that pitch stack. So go ahead, break out your deck, go ahead and do exactly what I did there. Play out, 4 cards used, banish 1, and figure out where your pitch stack comes. Make sure you truly understand that. And then once you got that down, make sure that the cards that are coming to your hand are going to be 4 blue cards. So that will give you all your resources. Typically, then you want to make sure you have in arsenal, like a Mauvrian Skies or a Shadow Puppetry. You'll banish a Seeping Shadows around that time. Then you've got Shackle, you've got your Boots. If you find an Art of War even, like that's a great way to do it. And then again, just using those cards that don't need Go Again, right? So Howl from Beyond, Invert Existence, Seeping Shadows, those are great. So, for example, we could go ahead and just play out, pitch 1 blue from our hand to play a Seeping Shadows. Go ahead and pitch 2 more blues. That's going to pay for 2 Howl from Beyonds. We're already at 3. We've got 2 resources floating at that point. So then you can Bounding Demigon, Invert Existence. That's a super easy one. But yes, just some combination of those cards that don't require Go Again is the best way to hit that. So with that out of the way, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in, checking out this video. It's been a lot of work. I'm sorry if the editing isn't as pretty as the first one, but there's a lot going on here. I'm trying to keep the video short, trying to get it out to you as soon as possible. I hope that you guys learned something. Please remember to like and subscribe, share this video with your friends, and we'll catch you next time, guys.